The courtroom was silent. Every eye in the room was locked onto the teenage boy standing in front of Judge Lawson. He was quiet, his hands tucked into the pockets of his hoodie, his messy brown hair partly covering his face. But even in his silence, there was something unusual about him. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't afraid. He was just waiting. Judge Lawson leaned forward, smirking. Well, well, well. A young man too scared to speak? Or do you just not understand what's going on? Laughter erupted in the courtroom. Lawyers chuckled, the prosecutor smirked, and even the audience joined in. But the boy, Ryan Carter, didn't react. He didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. Then, slowly, he lifted his head and locked eyes with the judge, and in a calm, steady voice he spoke. Your Honor, if you're done making jokes, I'd like to correct your mistake before you send an innocent man to prison. Gasps filled the room. The lawyers turned so fast their necks nearly snapped. The judge's smirk vanished in an instant. And that's when everyone realized Ryan Carter wasn't just some quiet kid. Friends, before I share today's episode, I want to tell you an interesting stat. 99% of the people who watch our content enjoy it, but they haven't subscribed to our channel yet. If you're one of those 99%, all you need to do is a small task. Just look below this video, you'll see a subscribe button. All you have to do is click that subscribe button. It's as simple as that. And if you want, you can also press the bell icon so that you're the first to know whenever we upload a new video. Now let's dive into the video. He was a genius. 3 weeks earlier, Ryan was sitting in the back of his classroom at Jefferson High School. While his classmates laughed and whispered, passing notes back and forth, Ryan was lost in his own world. His notebook was filled with complex equations, diagrams, and tiny scribbles of coding sequences. Ryan wasn't like other kids. He didn't care about gossip, parties, or sports. He preferred solving puzzles, hacking into random systems just to test his skills, and reading legal documents for fun. But his intelligence made him an outsider. People didn't understand him, and most of the time he found it easier to just stay quiet. At home, things weren't any easier. His mother, Emily Carter, worked 2 jobs just to keep the bills paid. His father had walked out on them years ago, leaving behind nothing but unpaid debts and broken promises. Ryan never talked about it. He had learned early on that emotions wouldn't change anything. But one night, while scrolling through public legal records, something caught his eye. A case that didn't add up. A man named Daniel Harris was about to be convicted for a crime he didn't commit. Ryan leaned in closer, reading through the evidence. The timestamps on the security footage were wrong. Something had been tampered with. His heart started racing. If no one noticed the mistake, Daniel Harris would spend the rest of his life in prison. Ryan had to do something. Ryan tried reaching out to lawyers and journalists, but no one took him seriously. He was just a kid. Why would they listen? Frustrated, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Sitting at his desk in the dim glow of his laptop screen, Ryan cracked his knuckles and started typing. He bypassed security firewalls, dodged encryption protocols, and slipped past the courthouse's digital defenses like a ghost. Within minutes, he was inside the system. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he searched for the unedited security footage, and then finally found it. Ryan's eyes widened as he watched the original video. It was exactly what he had suspected. The timestamps had been altered. The prosecution had used fake evidence to frame Daniel Harris. His heart pounded. He had just found the key to proving an innocent man's innocence. But then, a flashing red alert popped up on his screen. Unauthorized access detected. Trace initiated. Ryan's stomach dropped. Someone knew he was in the system. And now they were coming for him. Ryan barely had time to react. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, his mind racing for a way out, but it was too late. His screen flashed again. Trace complete. Location identified. His heart pounded. Whoever was watching him, they knew exactly where he was. Ryan slammed his laptop shut and took a shaky breath. He had no choice. He had to move fast. He copied the footage onto a flash drive, grabbed his hoodie, and rushed out of his room. His mother, Emily, was in the kitchen, exhausted from another long shift. She barely looked up as he hurried past. "Ryan, where are you going?" He hesitated for half a second. To fix something. And with that, he was out the door. Now, standing in front of Judge Lawson, Ryan held the flash drive in his pocket. He had what he needed, the truth. He just had to make them listen. The judge sighed, tapping his fingers against the desk. "All right, kid, you're wasting my time. If you've got something to say, say it." Ryan took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Your Honor, the security footage used in this case was tampered with. The timestamp was altered to frame Daniel Harris." Murmurs filled the room. The prosecutor scoffed. "And how exactly would you know that?" Ryan's voice was steady. "Because I found the original footage." The entire courtroom fell silent. Judge Lawson narrowed his eyes. "Explain." Ryan reached into his pocket and held up the flash drive. "This contains the real security footage. If you compare it to the one used in court, you'll see the difference." The defense attorney shot up from his chair. "Your Honor, I request that this evidence be reviewed immediately." The judge hesitated, then nodded to the court technician. "Play it." The screen flickered to life. The original footage played side by side with the fake one. And just like Ryan had said, the timestamps were different. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Daniel Harris, the man they were about to convict, had never even been there. Judge Lawson's expression darkened. He turned to the prosecutor. "You presented this evidence as factual. Do you have an explanation for this?" The prosecutor stammered, his face pale. There must be some mistake." But it was too late. Everyone in the courtroom could see the truth. Ryan had just exposed a massive error in the case. And then, the courtroom doors burst open. 2 officers rushed inside, their hands on their guns. "Step away from the bench. Now," one of them barked. The room froze. Ryan frowned. "What's going on?" One of the officers pointed directly at him. "Ryan Carter, you are under arrest for hacking into the government's legal database." Gasps filled the courtroom again. Emily Carter shot to her feet. "Wait, my son didn't do anything wrong. He just saved an innocent man." The officers ignored her. They grabbed Ryan by the arms and twisted them behind his back. Cold metal cuffs snapped around his wrists. Judge Lawson stood up. "What is the meaning of this?" One officer turned to him. "Sir, this kid hacked into restricted files. He accessed classified court records. We have orders to take him in." Ryan's mind raced. This wasn't right. He had just proven the truth. Why were they arresting him? He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, you can't let them do this. Someone wanted this case buried. That's why the evidence was faked." Judge Lawson's face was unreadable. For the first time, he looked unsure. And then the doors burst open again. A tall man in a dark suit walked in, flashing a federal badge. His expression was cold, calculating. He scanned the room before locking eyes with Ryan. "Let him go," he ordered. The officers hesitated. "Sir, we have direct orders." "I don't care about your orders." The man stepped closer. "Ryan Carter is coming with me." The tension in the room was suffocating. The judge, the lawyers, Ryan's mother, everyone was watching. Finally, the officers released Ryan's arms. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his wrists. The man in the suit turned to him. "Ryan Carter, my name is Agent Mark Reynolds, and you just got yourself into something much bigger than you realize." Before Ryan could respond, a gunshot rang out. Screams filled the courtroom. People ducked under desks. Papers flew into the air. Ryan's pulse spiked as he dropped to the ground. Another shot echoed, shattering a window behind the judge's bench. "Get down." Agent Reynolds pulled Ryan behind the desk, shielding him. "Stay low." Ryan's heart pounded. Someone was shooting at him. Judge Lawson was yelling. Lawyers scrambled for cover. Court officers drew their weapons, scanning the room for the shooter. Another gunshot. A man in the crowd collapsed, blood spreading across his chest. Panic erupted as people rushed for the exits. Ryan peeked over the desk and saw him, the shooter. A man in a black hoodie, standing by the courtroom entrance, gun raised. But he wasn't aiming at random. He was aiming directly at Ryan. Reynolds grabbed Ryan's arm. "We need to go, now." Ryan didn't argue. The agent pulled him through a side exit, leading him into a dimly lit hallway. Behind them, more gunshots rang out, echoing through the courthouse. Ryan's breath was ragged. Wow, who was that? Reynolds didn't slow down. Someone who doesn't want you talking. They burst through the emergency exit, stepping into the courthouse parking lot. Reynolds scanned the area, then yanked open the door of a black SUV. "Get in." Ryan hesitated. His mother was still inside. His mind screamed at him to go back. But then another gunshot. The shooter had followed them outside. Reynolds shoved Ryan into the SUV, jumped into the driver's seat, and slammed his foot on the gas. The tires screeched against the pavement as they sped away, the courthouse shrinking in the rearview mirror. Ryan's hands were shaking. His whole world had just changed in an instant. He turned to Reynolds, his voice barely above a whisper. "What did I just get myself into?" Reynolds' grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Kid, you just put a target on your back. And whoever's behind this, they won't stop until you're gone." Ryan swallowed hard. He had uncovered something far more dangerous than he ever expected. And now, someone wanted him dead. Ryan's heart pounded as the SUV sped through the city streets, weaving between cars at breakneck speed. He could still hear the echoes of gunshots in his ears, still see the terrified faces in the courtroom. Everything had happened so fast. 1 second he was proving an innocent man's innocence, and the next that was being hunted. Agent Reynolds kept his eyes on the road, his jaw clenched. His hands gripped the wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Ryan turned to him, his voice shaking. "Who was that shooter?" Reynolds didn't look at him. "Someone who didn't want you walking out of that courtroom alive." Ryan swallowed hard. "But why? I just found a mistake in a case. That doesn't make sense." Reynolds exhaled sharply. "You still don't get it, kid. This was never just about Daniel Harris. The second you hacked into that database, you stumbled into something much bigger than a simple case." Ryan's stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" Reynolds took a sharp turn onto an empty road, finally glancing at Ryan. "That footage you found, it wasn't just altered by some random corrupt lawyer. It was tampered with on a federal level. Someone high up wanted Harris convicted, and you just exposed them." Ryan felt his blood run cold. "Wait, are you saying this goes beyond the courthouse?" Reynolds nodded grimly. "Much beyond. Someone in the government is behind this, and now they know who you are." Ryan sat back, his mind spinning. He thought he was helping one innocent man, but in reality he had just pulled back the curtain on something far more dangerous. A sudden blast of headlights flooded the SUV from behind. Ryan turned, his breath catching in his throat. A black SUV was tailing them, speeding up fast. "Reynolds." "I see it." Reynolds cut in, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. "Hold on." He slammed his foot on the gas, the engine roaring as they surged forward. The pursuing vehicle matched their speed. "Thina," flash of gunfire. The back window shattered, glass raining down onto Ryan's lap. "Get down," Reynolds barked, swerving the car violently to the left. Ryan ducked, covering his head as bullets ripped through the SUV. "They're shooting at us." "No kidding," Reynolds growled, yanking the steering wheel. The tires screeched as they swerved onto a side street. Ryan forced himself to think. He wasn't just a passenger he could help. His laptop was still in his backpack. If he could get into the city's surveillance system, he might be able. His thoughts were cut off by another gunshot. The SUV lurched forward as a bullet hit one of the tires. "We're losing control," Ryan shouted. Reynolds gritted his teeth. "We're not stopping. Not yet." Ahead, Ryan spotted an upcoming tunnel. An idea clicked in his brain. "Go through the tunnel?" Reynolds didn't question it. He sped up, heading straight into the dark underpass. As soon as they entered, Ryan pulled out his laptop and started typing furiously. "What are you doing?" Reynolds asked. "Giving us an escape route," Ryan muttered. Within seconds, he hacked into the city's traffic control system. He quickly changed the signals for the tunnel, exit turning the light red for all directions. The moment they emerged on the other side, cars from every lane rushed forward, blocking the road behind them. The chasing SUV couldn't stop in time. It slammed into oncoming traffic, flipping over in a violent crash. Ryan let out a breath. That actually worked. Reynolds smirked. "Not bad, kid." But Ryan wasn't celebrating. He knew this wasn't over. They drove in silence for a while, the city lights flashing past. Ryan's hands were still shaking as he stared at his laptop screen. He had to know the truth. Finally, he turned to Reynolds. "What's really going on? Who's behind all of this?" Reynolds sighed, gripping the wheel. "You really want to know?" Ryan nodded. "I didn't almost die twice tonight just to stay in the dark." Reynolds exhaled. "Fine, listen carefully." He glanced at Ryan. "The files you accessed weren't just about Daniel Harris. They were connected to a much bigger operation, one that involves money laundering, cover-ups, and a high-ranking government official. Ryan frowned. Who? Reynolds hesitated, then said the name. Senator Mitchell Harper. Ryan's breath caught. He had heard that name before. Harper was powerful, respected, untouchable. If he was involved, this was way bigger than Ryan ever imagined. Reynolds continued. Harris was never supposed to be in that bank, but he was by accident, and he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. Ryan's pulse quickened. What did he see? Reynolds shook his head. We don't know. But whatever it was bad enough that someone framed him for robbery to keep him quiet. And when you dug up the real evidence, you became their next problem. Ryan felt a lump in his throat. So, now what? Reynolds' face hardened. Now we fight back. Reynolds drove for another hour, finally pulling into a hidden cabin deep in the woods. This is where we lay low, Reynolds said, stepping out. Ryan followed, still shaken. For how long? Reynolds turned to him. Long enough to take them down. Ryan exhaled. And how exactly do we do that? Reynolds smirked. We find a weak link. Ryan frowned. What do you mean? Reynolds motioned for Ryan to follow him inside. Every operation has someone on the inside who's scared, someone who wants out. If we can flip that person, we get the evidence we need to bring Harper down. Ryan nodded slowly. And I think I know just who to look for. He pulled out his laptop and started typing. He went through Harper's known contacts, searching for anyone who recently tried to erase their tracks. Then bingo. A name popped up. Jacob Turner. Ryan smirked. Looks like we've got our guy. Reynolds glanced at the screen. Turner's a financial operator for Harper's network. If he's trying to disappear, that means he knows something dangerous. Ryan cracked his knuckles. Then let's make sure he talks. Reynolds grinned. Now you're thinking like an agent. Ryan's fingers flew across his laptop keyboard as he dug deeper into Jacob Turner's records. The man was a mid-level financial operatora numbers guy. He wasn't at the top of the food chain, but he had seen everything. And now, he was trying to disappear. Reynolds peered over Ryan's shoulder, arms crossed. If he's running, that means he's scared. Ryan nodded. Which also means he knows something valuable. Reynolds smirked. Then we need to find him before Harper's people do. Ryan pulled up Turner's last known location. Got it. He booked a last-minute flight out of the country, but before that, he's making one last stop. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Where? Ryan turned the laptop around, showing a map. A parking garage downtown. In exactly 1 hour. Reynolds grabbed his car keys. Then we'd better hurry. The underground parking garage was dimly lit and eerily silent. Ryan and Reynolds crouched behind a parked SUV, eyes locked on a nervous-looking man standing near a sedan. Jacob Turner. He kept glancing over his shoulder, his hands shaking as he lit a cigarette. He was waiting for someone. Ryan whispered, Are we sure he's not working with them? Reynolds shook his head. Guys like Turner don't get their hands dirty. He was just moving money. But now, he's seen too much. Ryan watched as a black car pulled in. 2 men in suits stepped out Harper's men. Turner froze. He wasn't meeting friends. He was being silenced. Ryan tensed. They're here to kill him. Reynolds didn't hesitate. Not if we get to him first. The moment one of Harper's men reached inside his coat, Reynolds stepped out, gun drawn. Hands up. The garage erupted into chaos. The suited men turned, pulling their own weapons. Gunfire exploded, bullets ricocheting off cars. Turner screamed, diving behind his sedan. Ryan ducked as a bullet shattered the windshield above him. I really hate this part. Reynolds returned fire, dropping one of the men. The second guy ran for cover, but Ryan saw his chance. He grabbed a nearby tire iron and swung it into the guy's knee as he passed. The man crashed to the ground, groaning in pain. Reynolds smirked. Nice work, kid. Ryan exhaled. I don't ever want to do that again. Reynolds turned to Turner, who was shaking like a leaf. You have one chance to live through tonight. Start talking. Turner swallowed hard. You don't understand, they'll kill me. Ryan stepped closer. They already tried, and they'll try again. Your only shot? Help us take them down. Turner hesitated. Then, finally, he nodded. I'll tell you everything. Turner wasn't lying. He had emails, transaction records, Offshore bank statements, all of it. Proof that Harper had been laundering millions through fake government programs. Ryan copied everything onto a secure drive. Heart pounding. Reynolds nodded. "This is it. We've got him." Ryan turned. "We can't just drop this online. They'll bury it before it even makes the news." Reynolds smirked. "I wasn't planning on posting it." He slid his phone across the table. On the screen, a live-streamed charity gala. Senator Mitchell Harper was speaking on national television. Ryan's eyes widened. "You're saying we bring him down live?" Reynolds grinned. "We're going to expose him in front of the entire country." Ryan cracked his knuckles. "Let's do it." The ballroom was packed with the most powerful people in the country: senators, business tycoons, and journalists. At the front of the room, Harper stood at the podium, smiling, shaking hands. He had no idea what was coming. Ryan, dressed in a stolen waiter's uniform, slipped through the crowd. He carried a tablet in his hand, fingers hovering over the screen. Reynolds spoke into his earpiece. "You in position?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Almost." On the giant screens behind Harper, a live slideshow played images of his charity work, photos of ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Ryan smirked. Time to change the program. He hacked into the events system, replacing the slideshow with something new. A list of offshore accounts, transaction logs, emails, the proof. One tap of his screen, and the screens flickered. A new video played. The ballroom fell silent. It was Harper's own voice, taken from a leaked recording. "If Harris talks, we make sure he doesn't leave prison. This needs to be cleaned up now." Gasps filled the room. Guests turned to Harper, who was frozen in place. Then chaos. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Cameras flashed. Harper's face turned pale. "This is fake. Lies. Shut it down." But it was too late. FBI agents stormed the ballroom. An officer stepped forward. "Senator Mitchell Harper, you're under arrest." The room erupted in shouting. Harper lunged for the exit, but two agents grabbed him, forcing him into cuffs. Ryan watched as the once powerful man was dragged away, his empire crumbling around him. Harper turned, his eyes burning with rage. He glared at Ryan and whispered, "You don't understand, kid. Men like me don't go to prison." Ryan met his gaze, unshaken. "You will." Hours later, Ryan and Reynolds stood on the steps of the Capitol, watching the news unfold. Breaking news: Senator Mitchell Harper arrested for fraud, Wisconsin nest tampering, and conspiracy. Ryan let out a slow breath. "We actually did it." Reynolds patted his shoulder. "You saved a man's life, exposed a criminal, and hacked the government. Not bad for a 16-year-old. Ryan smirked. "Not bad at all." His mom, Emily, ran up, pulling him into a hug. "Are you okay?" "I saw the news. I was so worried." Ryan hugged her back. "I'm fine, Mom. It's over." Reynolds chuckled. "For now." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, for now?" Reynolds smirked. "Let's just say, a kid with your skills, the world is going to need you again." Ryan thought for a moment, then grinned. "Yeah, we'll see about that." As he walked away, the sun rising behind him, one thing was clear: his story wasn't over. It was just the beginning. Ryan Carter took down a corrupt senator with nothing but his brain and a laptop. But what if there are more secrets waiting to be uncovered? Would you watch his next adventure? Let us know.